Welcome to Cross Culture, real life, real talk, real wisdom. At Cross Culture, we believe that if we can change the way that we think, we can allow ourselves to align with God's purpose for our life and then impact the culture around us. This is Cross Culture. So welcome to Cross Culture. I have the privilege of having my brother in the Lord here with me, Joseph Mendoza. Welcome to the Cross Culture podcast.
And brother, what a blessing to be here with you.
Absolutely. So, here at Cross Culture, we're all about allowing God's power to really transform people's lives.
Right.
And when I first met you a few years back, I met the Joseph that's fully saved, redeemed,
Right.
put together. And I had no idea the testimony, tremendous testimony that you had and how God really had an impact on your life. So I wanted to bring you in studio today because I feel that message, that testimony can impact so many people's lives. And the things that you have gone through can save people from having to experience those same situations, or if they're in the same situation, can help to pull them out. So let's just kind of start from the beginning and share with us about this powerful testimony that you have.
Well, first of all, I think that's powerful because a lot of times in life, people just see a more polished version of an individual. And you and I know that generally behind that polished person, that there's a backstory, right?
Absolutely.
And everybody's backstory is different, right? Everybody's upbringing is different. And my backstory just happens to be a little unique. And obviously, I would not be here today and would not have met you. We would not have the brotherhood we do. We would not serve in ministry like we do. We would not do life like we do. Our families wouldn't be together like they are, if it wasn't for God's grace, if it wasn't for God's mercy. And, Kris, I was born in an alcoholic family. I was raised in an alcoholic home. And I know that there's so many people out there today in society, especially with COVID, that are struggling with addiction, whether it be alcoholism, drugs, depression, anxiety, food disorders. And that's the thing is people like to classify and categorize addiction. But I tell you this, alcohol addiction is the same as drug addiction, is the same as food addiction, porn addiction. Somebody is suffering from something. I thought that living in an alcoholic home was a normal way of life. I was born Catholic. I was raised Catholic. We went to Sunday Mass every Sunday. Little Joseph was an altar boy, so I knew all the altar boy movements. And, I was raised by a mom and a dad who were doing their best. My dad happened to be a functioning alcoholic. So for those of you who don't know, or maybe you don't know, what a functioning alcoholic is, a functioning alcoholic is somebody who can get up and manage and handle the day-to-day operations and duties as a husband, as a father, as an employee, as a person in society. And my dad happened to be a functioning alcoholic. Was there times that I saw him hammered, passed out? 100%. But for me, it was just a way of life.
Yeah.
My brother and I, we thought it was normal. Parents would have friends over. They'd be partying all night long. My dad retired 40 years, Arrowhead Water, as a heavy diesel mechanic. So his love language was drinking all night, in the garage, working on cars. Any mechanic's dream.
Yeah.
In the garage, with your friends, working on cars, drinking all night long. Was there some extracurricular drug activities going on? Absolutely, there was. But once again, Kris, we thought it was a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like we thought this is the way families operated.
It became your culture.
It was my culture. It was my culture. It was my upbringing. I was never ashamed of it. It never stopped me from bringing friends over. Our house was the house to be. I don't know if you ever had a friend growing up where it was like their house was the house to be.
Yeah.
Our house was the house to be for my brother's friends and my friends because our parents were partying nonstop. So there was never really any curfews. There was like, when the street lights come on, you got to be home. Sure, but once you get home, the lights can stay on all night. So our house, was the house to be. And you and I have an amazing mentor, an amazing friend who's named Tim Story. And Tim always talks about being birthed in pain.
Yeah.
And I honestly know what it's like, Kris, to be birthed in pain. When I look back, I was birthed in pain. I carried all those years with me. I heard this analogy one time by Joel Osteen. And Joel talks about, you carry all that baggage, and before you know it, you're trying to go through a TSA check at the airport, and they don't let you through because you got so much junk in those suitcases and that luggage that you're just so bogged down, and you got things that shouldn't even be with you, and they're stopping you at TSA saying, you can't go through. That's literally how my life was. My life was so many suitcases of so much baggage that I had accumulated over the years, Kris, that I never knew the effect.
Yeah.
I never knew the toll. I never knew the places or spaces that it would take me in a negative way. So, sophomore year in high school, 4 grandparents, my mom's mom and dad, my dad's mom and dad. Both my dad's parents pass alcoholism.
Wow.
Grandma's an alcoholic. Dad's dad hit and killed, drunk driver.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Mom's side of the family. Grandfather passes, alcoholic. Grandma, who was my nana, the only grandparent I knew when I was born, only grandparent alive, 1978. You could do the math how old I am. Just celebrated a birthday in December. Only grandparent I knew. It's crazy because I look at my kids today and it's like they have both sets of grandparents.
Yeah.
I was raised by my grandma. Okay. And my grandma, who we called Nana, my brother and I, she was like our everything. She was the protector. She's who watched us, who cared for us, who provided for us because she knew what was going on in the household.
Right.
She knew the chaos. She knew the craziness. She knew my dad. She knew everything that was going on. So that was like our place of refuge. Like, let's go to Nana's. Let's go hang with Nana. Let's go stay with her for the week. Let's go stay with her for the weekend. So that was like our place of refuge, our place of retreat, our place of comfort. And, I'll never forget sophomore in high school and my grandma passes. Sophomore year in high school, my grandma passes. I'm going to an all-boys Catholic high school. Never forget, Don Bosco Tech in Rosemead, California. Grandma passes, and man, I tell you, that was one of the toughest things I had ever had to endure up until that point in life. Because you talk about the one person who believed in you, cared for you,
right,
watched over you, was your protector, is now taken from you. And knowing the environment that you live in, that sense of security was now gone.
She was like a foundation for you.
Foundation. But 2 main things happened that year. My grandma passed and my dad got sober.
Wow.
My dad became sober. You may wonder, how'd your dad become sober? Because you hear so many stories of sobriety.
Yeah.
One of my favorite TV shows, Intervention. Love Intervention. Some say yes, some say no. Some receive, some reject, right? But everybody has a different story.
Yeah.
And the story goes, is my mom had set up an intervention for my dad.
Wow.
She tricked him. He thought he was going in the hospital for one thing. Little did he know that his family was sitting there waiting for him.
Wow.
So I know what a true intervention is like.
Yeah.
So when I watch that intervention TV show till this day, my wife and I, that hits home because I know what it's like to see my dad's face when he walked in and was like, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And to say that in that moment, he was open and willing to receive the help that was offered to him. But my dad knew. He knew that if he didn't accept the help, my mom was going to leave him. He knew if he didn't accept the help, that his kids, his 2 boys, were probably no longer going to be around him or involved in his life.
Yeah.
So he was faced with a major life-altering decision. And what I can say, Kris, is he accepted the help. He became sober. And honestly, it probably is the biggest blessing in our entire family's life, because a lot of times you talk about biblically generational curses, right? Or even in life, generational curses, whether it's heart disease, right? Whether it's smoking, cancer. There's so many generational curses and things that are passed down, right? From your parents, your grandparents, you inherit traits, behaviors, in this case, hereditary and addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah.
So, my dad gets sober and you would think like, wow, that's the perfect ending to the story. Like you're raised in an alcoholic home, your grandma passes,
Your dad gets sober.
your dad gets sober. Like wave the white tail, throw it in.
Yeah.
The Mendoza family's good. Like you guys are going to, be on your merry way on the yellow brick road and, onto this new lifestyle and family. And, Kris, I wish I could tell you that that's the way it was. And I think for somebody who maybe wasn't birthed in pain, yes, that would have happened. But you have to remember, I was exposed to so much over so many years that was a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So just because dad became sober, that was great for him and my mom.
Yeah.
But for me, I was carrying all the wreckage of the past. I was carrying all that baggage. So sophomore year, I'll never forget, I switched high schools, okay? I didn't want to go to the all boys Catholic high school anymore. I was over it. They were terrible in sports, and I was an athlete. And my mom used to work there, and she used to say, Joseph, do you understand how much families pay for their kids to go to school here? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I don't care. They pay thousands, and you get to go for free. Yeah, Mom, I don't care. Why? I want to go be with my friends. I want to go to a public high school. I want to be with my friends, and I want to play baseball and basketball with them. Mm-hmm. That was my dream, Kris, because growing up as a kid in Little League, we all played together.
Yeah.
Then in basketball, you play NJB, which I'm sure you're aware of, and a lot of people out there, their sons or daughters play NJB. We all played NJB together. And we all said, when we get to high school, we're going to be like the dream team. Yeah. Like we're all going to be in high school. We're all going to play basketball, baseball together. Well, I was the only one missing. They were all at Pioneer High School in Whittier, California, and I was the only one missing. So I make the jump, and I'll never forget Kris sitting in that counselor's office. The counselor goes, well, Miss Mendoza, your son has enough credits that he could technically graduate from high school right now. So I'm not sure what kind of classes he's planning on taking, but I'm sure we can find some things to put him in. He obviously has to take the required classes, which you and I know are a handful.
Yeah.
So here I go to a public school.
That's a big transition.
Huge transition. Okay. And I'm TAing 2 periods.
Wow.
Which equates to really nothing.
Nothing. Yep.
I get in ASB because I hear in ASB that you can be out of class all the time.
Yeah.
So I jump into ASB my junior and my senior year, and here I am. I'm the activities chairperson. I'm the one overseeing all the pep rallies, all the dances, planning all the stuff. So I'm like the man, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm the man in terms of being a jock, as you would call him in high school in sports. And then I'm the man with ASB. So I'm living this life, right? So I think, or so I call living this life. And, I get exposed to alcohol my junior year in high school. I get exposed to alcohol. And when I say exposed, you may say, well, you were already exposed, right? But I hadn't taken
it, yeah.
Exactly. So I was exposed and I finally accepted and I finally started consuming alcohol junior year in high school. By the time I was a senior in high school, we were partying nonstop. Mm-hmm. Every football game, every weekend, we were partying nonstop. At 17 years old, 17 years old, senior in high school. One night I'm wasted, have a one-night stand. And so many people out there that know exactly what I'm about to share and have probably been through something similar. And those who haven't experienced it, I pray that somebody doesn't have to experience this, because this was like a life-altering situation where I have a one-night stand with this female and she ends up pregnant. Senior in high school. I'm 17 years old. Oof. And I'm faced with a decision. Do I go to college and play Division I baseball? Mm-hmm. Because I had multiple offers to play Division I baseball. I was phenomenal in baseball. I was a pitcher. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to stay back and I'm going to raise this child. And we end up having our firstborn, which his name is Jaden, amazing 25-year-old son. Couldn't ask for a more amazing child today, you know, but he's birthed and we're both 17 years old, Kris, and we're trying to navigate through life. I'm drinking nonstop. I'm partying. She's angry with me. The relationship doesn't work. And, you know, we co-parent to the best you can co-parent at 17, 18, 19 years old, which, you know, as a parent, there's no blue book to parenting.
I mean, and at that point, you're making adult decisions before you're even truly an adult.
Right. So by the grace of God, her mom and dad, my dad's sober now a couple years, and my mom, their marriage is great. Everything's back on track. By the grace of God, we had both sets of parents who really stepped in and assumed that mother-father role responsibility because we were so young.
Right.
We didn't know any better.
Right.
You know, we were teenagers. We were young adults. We did not know any better. You know, I had to start working full-time, 18 years old, right out of high school.
Yeah.
Second shift, Compton, California, 2 to 10 at night.
Oh my goodness.
I was working in a rough part of Compton. So here I am working full-time because I got to provide.
Yeah.
Here she is working full-time because we got to provide. So that's not an ideal situation for a young boy playing sports in high school, dreaming, thinking college, to now no college, and you're going to raise a child.
Yeah.
You talk about life altering, you talk about drastic, you could say any word, and that would be it. But looking back on it, Kris, I would never change or have altered that decision to go to college to play baseball over raising our son, because the relationship that I have with him today at 44 and 25 is absolutely amazing. When I look at the pictures from this past Christmas together with our families and I see how Jordan and Joelle look up to him, Kris, it brings emotion to me because that's still their big brother.
Yeah.
That's still Jaslyn and Jude's big brother. And they don't see him all the time, but I tell you, they look up to him.
And I think what's powerful is that I think a lot of times we make decisions based upon what other people will think.
Right.
And at that time, you really put your son at the center of that decision that you were making.
Right.
And this is before you had even given your life to Christ.
Yeah.
But you understood that you had a responsibility for this new life that you had created, regardless of how that new life came into the world.
Right.
And so you prioritizing your son showed that love that you had for him even before you understood all that it takes to be a good dad.
Right.
And I think that's something for people to know is you're a fantastic dad.
Thank you.
I see you with all of your kids. I don't see you treat any one of them differently. You show the same love to them, and to see how you father them and guide them and lead them is an amazing thing. So I think that's a powerful part of your testimony.
And, you know, the part that is very important is when I had to go break the news to my parents, right? Haven't even graduated. Senior in high school. We haven't even hit graduation ceremony. I had to go tell my mom and dad and break the news to them. And I'll never forget, my dad didn't talk to me for almost 3 weeks, Kris. And the reason why he didn't talk to me, it wasn't because he was angry at the decision and the choice. He saw his son's hopes and dreams of playing baseball out the window.
Yeah.
That's what he saw.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to me for 3 weeks. And it was the hardest 3 weeks of my life because that was the same guy that my brother and I always wanted approval from.
Yeah.
Most boys who transition to teenagers and to young men, they're always looking for their father's approval.
100%.
And there's nothing like a father's approval.
That's right.
And for you women out there who, you know, are daughter, you're always looking for mom's approval. And we always wanted his approval. And despite all the dysfunction that was in our family up until my dad getting sober, to not have his approval in that instance, when you're used to him always supporting you and backing you, was tough.
Yeah.
And he finally came to the terms and the realization that I was not going to go to college and that I was going to stay back. I was going to raise this child. We were going to be committed, even though her and I were not going to be in a relationship together, that we were going to be committed as a mom and a dad to doing our best to raise a child, all while my alcoholic behavior, tendencies, drinking was just spiraling out of control, You know, Kris, at age 21, you know, most people look forward to age 21. Why do they look forward to the age 21?
It's legal to drink.
It's legal to drink. Well, little Joseph over here wasn't really looking that forward to age 21 because I was already a full-blown alcoholic at 21 years old. And you may say, like, how did you know that? I was drinking non-stop. I was dependent on it. And that's how I knew that I had an issue. 21 years of age, I get my first DUI. I'm at a house party in Seal Beach, California. And the reason why I like telling this story is because of how it played out. Never to glorify the amount of trouble that I got in, because each story has a unique purpose.
Yeah.
And each story connects to why I'm sitting here with you now. Seal Beach, California. I have to go move my car. We've been drinking all day long. I walk outside, trunks, no flip-flops, no shirt, no nothing, just trunks on me. I'm just going to go move my car. Keys in hand, flip a U-turn, scratch my rim on the curb.
Oh my goodness.
And for you men out there, scratching a
Scratch
rim.
those rims, man.
I mean, Kris, I know even you right now, you scratch your rim, you're probably pulling over saying, what's the damage?
Yeah.
What did I do? So what did I do? I pulled over because I had to assess the damage. And little did I know, there was a cop at the intersection making a turn to my direction and saw it all play out.
Wow.
I get out, no shoes, barefoot, nighttime, checking my car, and it was a female cop, and I'll never forget. She comes behind me, flashes the lights, and I'm like, oh man. But I'm thinking in my head, like, I can manipulate, I can get out of anything. I'm literally in that complex, right across the street. I'm right there. Like, come on, you just let me make a left and I'm good. She doesn't let me make a left, and they take me in. So first DUI, turned 21 in 2000, and I'm going to fast track a little bit here. So first DUI, 2000, slap on the hand, no big deal.
Yeah.
Mind my P's and Q's, do what the courts ask of me, and I'm good to go. 2002, I get DUI number 2. So now I'm like, okay, you know, with anything in life, you make one bad choice. Okay, there's no problem. Okay. Second time, I'm like, all right, this is interesting. Maybe there's a problem, maybe not. I get a harder slap this time, right? Second DUI, 2002. And shortly after that, 2007. So you could think of, do the math there, 2000, 2002, 2 years. 2002, 2007.
You made it 5 years.
5 years. So I'm good, right? Like 5 years, everything's good. First one, second one, all the, classes, courses, everything's done. Like I'm back on track. I'm good to go. With knowing in the back of my head that in the state of California, DUIs stay on your record for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I know all the laws, all the rules about all the DUI stuff. So 2007, I get number 3. And I knew that at that point I was in some serious trouble, but I also knew that I had a really, really bad problem. And in 2007, I made the conscious choice and decision to say, I'm going to get sober. And I remember, a lot of it was I had to see a probation officer. I was on formal probation. So a lot of the formalities were that I couldn't drink. I had a breathalyzer. I had to do all this stuff, right? Which, for the average person is tough. But for me, like when the going gets tough, the heat gets turned on. That's when I operate best. So I end up staying sober, Kris, 2007. I end up staying sober for almost 2 years.
Now in 2007, you said kind of that was a a little bit of a turning point.
Yeah.
Now, what was there anything in your personal life that you would say triggered you to take it more seriously, or was it kind of the consequence of the situation that made you take it more seriously?
Well, obviously, the consequences were more harsh, but I think at that time, when something happens a third time, it's like 3 strikes and you're out. Mm-hmm. At that point, it was like, okay, I knew it was something greater. Mm-hmm. I knew there was an issue. I knew there was deep underlying pain. I knew there was a lot behind it, but it was just so much for me to really come to terms and come to reality with.
Yeah.
Anyone who struggles from addiction, the hardest thing is to admit it. The hardest thing is to say, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to say is, I'm a drug addict. The hardest thing to say is, I'm addicted to pornography. The hardest thing to do is admitting.
Yeah.
And for me, it was so hard to admit. But for so many people out there right now, Kris, that'll watch this episode, you know, whether it's today, a week, a month, 2 years from now, it doesn't matter. The hardest choice is always admitting.
And I think it's because before you admit, the problem is outside.
Right.
But the moment that you say that you admit that you have the problem,
Mm-hmm.
now you internalize the problem and you realize the problem starts here.
Right.
And until you get to that point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired,
Right. Which is the definition of insanity.
which is the definition of insanity, nothing will change.
Nothing, you know, and up until that point, I wasn't sick and tired of being sick and tired. I just knew that there was an issue. Mm-hmm. There was like that red flag, that warning sign, that flashing hazard light, like, hey, kind of like, wake up, you know, wake up. This could be worse. And, you know, I've been through so many DUI classes. I've been through so many AA meetings. I've had sponsors, and, you know, there's something they always say. And when I say they, I'm not saying it they in a negative way, because I don't attend AA today. AA doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But AA works for so many other individuals, and it's an amazing organization that saves people's life. For me, it was about my faith. For me, it was about my accountability partners. And for me, I took a different path and direction, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But they always talk about the disease will always spiral back to where you were or worse. And think about that. In 2002, I thought it was bad, but no way did I ever believe it would get to the point of 2007.
Yeah.
So looking back and having this conversation now, I can look you in the face and say, it is 100% true that from 2002 to 2007, the only difference this time was it took 5 years, or the first time it took 2 years. But in that 5 years, so much wreckage, so much damage, so much heartache and pain was going on in that 5-year span that when I hit 2007, I was far worse in every area of my life than 2002. Far worse. So then I make this decision that, you know what? I'm really going to try this sobriety thing. You know, I've been around it. I've heard it. My dad's sober. Now you have to remember, my dad gets sober. I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm now 2007. I graduated in 97. My dad's sober almost 12 years to this point.
Yeah.
The number one question that I always get asked is like, did you not think of getting sober sooner because of your dad? And I was like, no, like I never looked at my dad being sober like as an indicator that I needed to become sober. I looked at it as he had a problem and I didn't. Mm-hmm. So as an addict, you're always looking for what separates you.
Yeah, you're trying to minimize the problem you
He
have.
had the drinking problem.
Yeah.
He was the one that almost lost his marriage. He was the one who did drugs. He was the one who ruined this. But never would I put myself in that same category.
Got it.
In that same field. Never. You're always looking for the difference.
Yeah.
Looking for the difference. So I can say, nope, he did that, but I'm not that bad.
Right.
So at that point, he's been sober 12 years. I mean, come on, Kris. 12 years is a long time.
That's solid.
Anybody right now who's watching this and you're sober one day, that is amazing.
It's huge.
So many people will text me and be like, I'm sober 30 days. And they get intimidated because they think someone who has 11 and a half years sobriety, they almost approach it like, I'm not at your level. I'm not at your status. But the truth is, Kris, and this is the God honest truth, it is hard at 30 days
Right.
to stay sober.
Because you haven't developed the habit of
It
it
is
yet.
hard.
Yeah.
So what has become a lifestyle for me today
Yeah.
is not a lifestyle for somebody at day 1, day 30, day 60, or day 90.
Yep.
That's not a lifestyle.
Yeah.
They're drying up. They're drying out.
The itch
They're
is
trying to
still there.
navigate through
Yeah.
society. AA talks to you about how people, places, and things. Are you willing to change people, places, and things?
Yeah.
At 30 days, you're not thinking about changing people, places, and things. You're just trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
Right? And you're looking, and that same liquor store is on the corner. You're looking at that billboard and it still shows Corona. You're still looking at your buddies and they're still in that same bar.
Yeah.
Those people, places, and things, they don't change.
That's right.
You as the individual have to change. So if you've been sober 1 day or 30 days,
Fantastic.
I congratulate you.
You're on the
because
right road.
I know how hard it is to stay sober. So to anybody who feels like 1 year's not enough, in God's eyes, you're more than enough.
Yeah.
And 1 year is more than enough. You know, so you look at my story, 2007, sober 2 years. And this is what I told myself. I said, I'm going to drink again, but I'm going to drink on my terms. Because remember, I'm a guy who always has it figured out.
Yeah. You're in control.
Master plan, master manipulator, master liar, master cheater, master everything. So my thing was, I'm going to drink for a special occasion. And this is what I would tell myself. It's going to be a big wedding. It's going to be for a funeral. It's going to be for something gigantic. And that's going to be like my coming out party and my validation to drink again. And it's going to be okay. Why? Because I can say I was sober 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So here I am trying to beat the system again. I was sober 2.5 years. I'm going to have a coming out party someday, sometime. Don't know what it's going to be. Don't know where it's going to be. And it ended up being a 5-day cruise to Ensenada.
Oh, wow.
A girl I was dating at the time said, let's go on a cruise. And I said, you know what? This is the moment. This was that special occasion that really all along, Kris, I've been building towards.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. I'd been building towards it. Was I working sobriety? Was I working a program? No. Was I sober? Sure. Some will say, you just weren't drinking. That's correct. I just wasn't putting something in my body or my system that was altering the way I think or I felt or I acted.
Yeah.
So I knew at that point, that trip, that was the golden ticket. And you want to know why? Because I told myself, you don't got to drive.
Yeah.
You're going to be on a boat sailing. You been on a cruise?
No.
You know all the alcohol's included?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know that.
So you talk about like that ding, ding, ding moment in life where it's like, oh my gosh, like I don't got to drive, a guy with 3 DUIs. I can drink and it's included to an alcoholic. Like you think about these things.
You took out the consequence, basically.
This was an alcoholic. This was Joseph's dream of how this was going to play out and how I was going to incorporate myself back into the drinking world. So I go on this cruise, Kris, start drinking. I'll never forget. We're in Ensenada and the boat's supposed to leave. And who do you think was the last passenger to get on the boat was? Do you know that the boat was 2 minutes away from leaving me because I was so wasted that I could barely make it back to the boat? And that is a honest story.
Wow.
Barely made it back to the boat. Don't even remember what happened the rest of that day, night. All I know is I made it back on the boat, finished the trip, It was like a drunken haze, but that was the golden ticket that really set me back into that vicious cycle, into that spiral. So, 2007, we fast forward, it's 2009, almost going into 2010. Kris, 2011. What took me 2 years the first time, what took me 5 years the second time, took me 1 year the last time. Because I went back to that place so dang fast. You would think, but you were sober 2.5 years. How did you go back to the same place you were in 2007 so quick? It happened and unraveled so fast, where February, what's Valentine's Day, Kris?
February 14th.
14th, 2011. I will never forget that day, because that is the day that will and has forever changed my life. For most people, it's here, it's I love you, it's going on the fancy dates, it's taking your spouse or your loved one or your partner. I found myself in a jail cell. I got DUI number 4. By the grace of God, I had just dropped a friend off in Fullerton before I got in an accident that would change my life forever. I had just dropped him off, Kris. And I play this out till this day. Like, God, what happens if I never would have dropped him off? What happens if I wouldn't have made that right? What happens if I would have kept going straight on Baston Cherry and not had taken him home? All those things always play in my head, the what ifs, right? But it all happened, you always talk about you're created for a purpose, on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Things happen on purpose, for purpose.
Yeah.
I was meant to drop him off. And here I am, brand new car, Volkswagen Jetta, bought it 5 days prior.
Oh my goodness.
Brand new car, Kris. Here I am partying in downtown Fullerton, and I'm wasted, and I'm back behind the wheel. I drop him off. For those of you who are in Southern California, I always like to paint the geographical location because it always helps with people, who may be local. Is I'm right coming from Fullerton. You're up Baston Cherry by the Summit House.
Yep.
And then you're coming down Baston Cherry, heading into Brea.
Yep.
I lived in Brea with my mom and dad. Right where Craig Regional Park is, that's Elm Street. You make a left right there, and I'm home. I crash 1 minute from our house on Baston Cherry. And I'll never forget. I'm going 85 miles an hour. Wow. At 3 o'clock in the morning, brand new car. I go to switch lanes. I didn't see a car. And then by the time I did realize the car, don't ask me how I didn't hit the car. It was definitely God. It was definitely an angel. There was definitely something protecting me and that other car with passengers. Because by the time I noticed it, I felt like I was on top of the car.
Wow.
I jerked to the right, no braking, 85 miles an hour, straight in to a brown telephone pole. Kris, it splits my car in half. The brown telephone pole, if you can see me on camera, is right here. Center console right here.
Oh my goodness. Unbelievable.
Splits my car, brown telephone pole. I have a bloody nose from the impact.
Yeah.
And bruised ribs later from the impact. But somebody who lived on the street, they come, they pull me out, lay me on the sidewalk, and I'll never forget, and I can't use the verbiage, but I'll never forget the Fullerton cop who first showed up. He said, "You effing should not be alive. You should be dead."
Wow.
And I'll never forget walking to the cop car and looking at that car saying, that's a car that many of us see on cops or high-speed chases or in movies, and never does the person walk away. Never does the person walk away. They're loaded into an ambulance. There's a body bag. There's something other than walking away. But here I am walking away, my own 2 legs, my own power in the back of a cop car. And I'm just looking. The last glimpse I ever got of that car was, I don't even know how I'm still alive. Because I tell you, my mom never saw the car. My dad never saw the car. Felicia never saw the car. I never wanted any of them to see the car. Because had they saw the car, that would have scarred them for life. Because they would have said, there's no way you're okay. There's absolutely no way. So at that point, Kris, I knew I was in major trouble. I mean, one of my favorite games to play is Monopoly. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who know Monopoly, you know, it's don't pass go directly to jail. Yeah. I knew I wasn't passing go. Mm-hmm. I knew I wasn't collecting $200. I knew my butt was going straight to jail.
You realized that pretty much right away?
In that split moment. Mm-hmm. In that moment, everything that had built up to that one night, I knew I was in serious trouble. Like at that point, the lying, the cheating, the stealing, the manipulation, it was all out the window. Because there's no way you can manipulate yourself out of the back of a cop car.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to manipulate yourself out of a jail cell. And there's no way you're going to walk into a courthouse in front of a judge that has already seen that you've been in this same courthouse 2 times and you're going to manipulate a judicial system. Absolutely no way. So I knew I was in big trouble, Kris. And, you know, at the time, I was working for Bank of America Corporate in Brea, 7 years, worked my way up in the mortgage department there, you know, was doing very well because here I found myself being that functioning alcoholic, like that one individual in my life that I saw all the time. And remember what I told you, what I thought was normal, I thought was normal. You drink, you get up, you go to work. You drink, you get up and handle your responsibilities. You drink, you still got to take care of your kids. You drink, you still got to operate and do life, right? So here I am, this functioning person that's going about life. And, you know, it comes to a screeching halt. Here I am, I'm taken to jail. And at that point in time, Kris, I didn't know what to do. You know, when you talk about hitting rock bottom, everybody's bottom is different that struggles with addiction. My bottom is a bottom that anytime I meet somebody or talk to somebody, including my own brother who's going to be sober over 5 years this year, including my own brother when he struggled, is I always used to tell him, you don't have to go through what I went through. You can stop this now. Yeah. You don't have to get 1, 2, 3, 4 jail. You don't have to go through that. Let my story be a story that helps impact you where you can say, dang, I don't want to experience that. So when I share this with you, it's never to glorify the trouble. It's never to glorify being in a cop car. It's never to glorify being in jail. It's to talk about the redemption power, the restoration power, and what God can do to radically change and do to an individual's life. And that's me. So the story that I always want people to remember is if God can do it for me, he could do it for my family. He could do it for you. Amen. He could do it for your family. You could be the Joseph of your family. I just happen to be the Joseph of my family, and I happen to be named Joseph. So when I look at it now, do I think it's by coincidence? Absolutely not. I know that I'm the Joseph to my family. Has that been told to me? Absolutely, but I know that today. You talk about things happen for a reason, not by coincidence. I'm laying on my bunk. I'm on the top bunk, got my bunkie underneath me. And I'll never forget, it's like everybody sees on TV, you know, the jail bars have books. Like that's what you see in movies and stuff. That's real. So I remember one night I turned around and I was glancing at the book. And you know the book because you know my story, and I have the book sitting in my nightstand. This green, purpose-driven life book by Rick Warren and a Bible were right next to each other. I glanced and something brought me back to those two things. Pulled them both out. Bible's in my hand. How do I start reading the Bible? Like, I don't read. I wasn't a scholar. I hate reading. Flip to the back of the Bible. It says, Bible reading plan. Start in the book of John. And I said, I've never taken direction my whole life. I think this is a good time to take direction and start in the book of John and go through this Bible plan that's in the back.